you very scared John straight, so.
Well, I mean, I just made one on record that the contract is $23,000.
Okay. I think that's fair. Two meetings in one. Hey, how you doing? Don't see weird. John. Not much different than anything else, huh? Controversy after controversy.
That's what I like.
Don't get hit in the head like
These seats are,
but he is
They're wicked loose.
yeah. First
She just informed me yesterday. Last night.
So that's the reason that I'm going to make some cuts.
I know.
So I'm going to let you know if you come on board.
That's what it
Well, you just put together.
the sign-in sheet in way over there. Sorry, pass it down. The way this is set up, you already signed it.
The applicant should file They're always required. Right now, the conservation is like a lot of miles in the legal process.
Oh, alright. Yeah, I saw this.
You have to prove, the applicant has to prove that it's been paid, that it was in the newspaper.
Why is it way back there?
I don't know what else to say.
This is what, the lemon, a little. Here, I'm giving you your pen back. Was this your pen?
Yeah.
I think it was this one.
Just so you know, that is live stream.
Okay. All right. We'll go around the other way. I won't talk.
Move on.
I gave you, my name thing is right here. You're next to me. You're here.
Just so
How are you guys doing? We're trying to beat our 12 presentation. Hopefully there's more than 9 people that comes. We're trying to break the record. The first year was 6, second year 6, third year was 9. Hopefully we'll get more.
Are we recording, Jake?
Right, that was 6. Oh, no, whole crap, I think was it. He might have walked out halfway through. And you're the one where he threw the papers in the ground. Okay. That was the first and the second year. This is where elementary school students, I think.
go now. We on? Good to go? Yep. Good evening. Let's stand for the pledge and then we'll resume.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So good evening. It's going to be a real short meeting, and then we're going to get on to the budget presentation by Rock. So first article is, or a reminder, the annual town meeting is set for June 5th at 6:30 p.m. at the Brookfield Elementary School in the cafeteria. The first article, the first thing on the agenda is the 6-5 annual town meeting warrant and budget final review. We're going to go to number 3, unless we're going to go to 3 right away and let Kermit Eaton speak regarding the cemetery pavement article.
I understand there's been, I'll make this brief. There's been a ruling by the town council, and I'm not sure exactly what it said, but I just want to clarify some points here. And I'll make it brief. At the town meeting in 2023, we voted at the town meeting to have a committee to decide how the $60,000 would be spent. That committee consisted of people from the Cemetery Commission, the Historic Commission, at-large members, Conservation Commission, etc. It was voted almost unanimously to do that. The Select Board appointed a committee made up of that group that I just mentioned. When the article was put forward, the Cemetery Commission was not aware of a preservation management plan for that historic site. They weren't aware. They were made aware of it subsequently, but when they put the article on, they weren't aware of it. According to what I've just briefly heard about 15 minutes ago, that the lawyer said that essentially that committee was invalid, if I understand that right.
Not necessarily. Her interpretation of the warrant and the motion that was cobbled together at the 2023 annual town meeting, in her opinion, was quite vague. But since the warrant article itself and the motion itself mentioned the cemetery department being in charge or having the funds go from free cash to the quote-unquote cemetery department for the paving of 2 roads, in her opinion, she believed that $60,000 was under the control of the cemetery department, and that was the quote-unquote spirit of the law, or excuse me, spirit of the motion and the warrant article.
Okay, so is she saying that the committee that was formed has no valid position in this at all?
No, she said once again, from reading the motion, because mind you, there was no mention in the warrant article itself about the paving committee, but in the motion, she believed the charge that town meeting had given to the paving committee was to do the study, make a recommendation, then present it to the select board.
Yes, okay. We haven't done that yet. So, but I was concerned that she was invalidating the committee, but she hasn't invalidated the committee. Okay, because I was concerned about that. So what the dilemma here is, we have not reported back to the selectmen, and we have not finished our charge that we were given. And I'm not sure where we stand here, but if we haven't completed our charge, we haven't submitted a plan to the select board, is that committee still in force, even though, quote, the time expired?
She did not offer an opinion about that. What was asked of her is to provide a review and an opinion as to the validity of the article as it was presented. Her legal opinion is that once again, in her opinion, the cemetery department / cemetery commissioners are authorized to utilize that $60,000 for paving, that this particular motion, the way it's written, would really accomplish nothing, because the spirit of the article is, once again, to, I guess, authorize the cemetery commission to utilize that money to pave the roads, which, once again, in her opinion, was already accomplished back in 2023.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any position by the paving committee to circumvent what the cemetery commission has an obligation to do. We just have to set the guidelines and make sure that the preservation plan is forwarded. And I don't think there's any dispute between the cemetery commission and the cemetery planning committee. We just haven't finished our task for a variety of reasons. You know, Ryan left in October of 23. And since October of 23, we've been going through various highway superintendents. They are a committee member, and we depend heavily on them for their input. Most of it comes from them, quite frankly. So we haven't done that. So I don't know where we go from here, but because the town voted almost unanimously to have this committee to be involved in it. And I hope my vote and everybody else's vote means something. And I hope that the selectman's appointment means something. But if it can be devoid or invalidated by some legal quirk, that seems puzzling to me. So,
and once again, that was she did not opine on the validity or the expiration of the paving committee. That was not her charge. Her charge was specifically Article 22 as it's presented, and
I'm not a lawyer here, but is the cemetery commission and the paving committee still in place?
I would say the paving committee is still in place. My opinion is that when I was at that meeting and the committee was mentioned and it seemed to follow the money. So it's my opinion, until the money is spent on the paving of the roads, the committee would have input. Well, but again, they are an elected board. Karen, were you able to schedule a meeting with the paving committee and the cemetery commissioners?
It should be Thursday the 29th.
And everyone has responded?
7 p.m. No, not everyone. I would say 4 responded.
Any of the cemetery commissioners?
Mike is pretty sure that we all started cemetery committees.
Okay. So hopefully, Kermit, you talked about the possibility of shaking this out in one meeting.
Yes.
We have one meeting scheduled before the annual town meeting. So with any luck, the select board and Ron Aponte and both committees, I'm hoping that we can get that goal accomplished. And maybe there's no reason to have that last article at the annual town meeting. Maybe we will come to an agreement to get it done and everyone will be happy. Because I think maybe some of your quest has been lack of communication, but it appeared in speaking to Michael Seary and looking at the article that talked about the chip seal being on. That was something that I know is very important to you, as well as the preservation plan and following it. So I believe that everyone's on the same page. It's now just getting everyone together to sign off on it.
I would support that 100%.
Okay.
I mean, I think that that's the issue. I mean, there are other issues. There's documentation here that even the cemetery commission's comment is we can't move forward until such and such. We as a committee agree and so forth.
So I think clarification.
They believe that we have some responsibility. I think the question really is, Richard, is where our responsibility as a paving committee ends. And that,
Unfortunately, it seems like it was very vague, but,
Yes.
but at the same time, I was at that meeting, and my opinion was, if I had to say, that the paving committee follows the money, for lack of a better term.
and that, I think that's more of the selectmen's decision than our, well, I guess our committee, no, maybe not.
I have to be careful there because they are an elected board.
Yes.
Right? So
Yes.
we have no oversight over them.
We could discuss that at the meeting, and as the paving committee, we could say, we think we should go till the job is completed, or our responsibilities end once we've decided on the scope of work.
Okay.
Even the cemetery commission says that we don't, at least certainly we have to be there when the bids come in and decide what roads are going to be done with the money, because they don't think they have enough money to do all the roads, because they assumed it was going to be done with in-house people, and it's not going to be done with in-house people, which is another issue.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm more than willing to continue this on the 29th, but
Okay.
we have 15 minutes to get through
All right.
7 more
Well,
agenda items.
I have a
So,
question. So
Okay.
what's the point of the article? Because Michelle said that okay, so I get the dispute between what materials and if the other paving committee is expired, whatever. That has nothing to do with the article. The article is asking if the cemetery commission can be responsible for the money, but according to Michelle, they are already responsible for the money.
Exactly.
So if we go to town meeting,
we may not even present the article based on what Ron said with Michelle today. Is that correct?
Yeah, one of the things we could do is in the motion, we could move to take no action. And in essence, bypass that. Because I agree, I see where you're going.
there's
We're not going to accomplish anything if it gets accepted,
Right.
and we're not going to accomplish anything if it's not accepted.
well, I just don't want people to argue for an hour
No,
about.
well, that's the reason for the meeting on the 29th, to shorten the annual town meeting. Right? Essentially, to shake it out before that, because I can see 45 minutes on the town.
Yeah, I don't,
floor.
yeah, and if they're gonna have control no matter what, then what's the point, I guess?
Yeah. I don't want to
All right.
make it worse for people to come to the annual town meeting.
No, I
No offense to you, Karen.
sorry, Karen, but I'm not trying to
Let
go.
me just clarify, Sarah, for your point too. I have talked to 3 other members, which is a majority on that. And that majority feels that in one meeting, we can come to a resolution.
Which is fine, which is fine, I'm okay with that. I just want to make sure that we're all on the
I just
same
didn't want you to
page.
think it was just me talking.
No, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that the cemetery commission has the control of the money, no
Okay.
matter what.
So we're going to move on.
Good.
Article
All right,
number
good.
2
Okay.
is
Thanks for your time. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Good luck.
So-
I'm not staying around. I'm going to take my wife to dinner.
the second agenda item is sign the annual town meeting warrant. So I signed.
But
Yeah, I was going to say, before we leave number 1, if the board, because we never actually, I guess, codified or voted after
Okay.
the election to accept the actual budget as submitted with the 2% COLA.
Okay.
And that's what we currently have on the books right now.
So the reason I skipped that is we're going to make some slight modifications, I'm hoping, this evening. So
Okay.
at this meeting, in both, one is Article number 5 is the Board of Health clerks, right? So
Gotcha.
Maureen responded to your email asking for any last-minute budget cuts.
Correct. Yep.
And she said now that she would be willing to cut her clerk's hours to 8 hours a week,
Okay.
right?
what was it originally, 10?
I think it was 12.
12 would be.
Fair.
So let's just go to item number 4. We're jumping all around here. But
Yeah.
Item number 4, all boards clerk discussion. That position went from 15 hours a week to 10 a couple months ago.
Correct.
I still can't wrap my head around 40 hours a month to do minutes for 2 boards. We've talked about whose job it is to post postings for applicants to do a project, whether it be a in-town resident or an outside town contractor. In any other town I've worked in, I did my own paperwork because the town did not have someone and the town wasn't paying anyone to do that. And I'm not in favor of the residents of Brookfield paying for a contractor to come to town and have our all boards clerk paid to do the contractor's work on the backs of the taxpayers. So I'm going to make a recommendation that, in speaking with Karen about how long it takes to do minutes, I'm going to make a recommendation that we cut the all boards clerk hours to 5 hours a week from the 10 to 5. And the whole goal in making these additional cuts, it's part of a bigger process. 10 years ago, when we agreed to build a police station, the police station was financed, I believe, for 15 years. It was a very minimal payment that was paid annually, and the bulk of it was interest, approximately $30,000 a year, and approximately $300,000 went to the police station just in interest over the last 10 years. So approximately 2 years ago, our town treasurer took the police station and a fire truck, packaged those together, reborrowed $1.1 million and some change for almost 5% interest. So now we went from paying for a police station for 15 years to 25 years. My goal at the end of these cuts and the items that we did not put on the town warrant is to come up with approximately $150,000 in free cash that we can put on a principal payment towards our police station, $75,000 on the police station and $75,000 on the fire truck. That is fiscally responsible. I do not want to keep paying the interest over almost $60,000 a year for those two items. I want that to come to an end. So that is the reason for the last minute cuts on these particular, and they're small cuts, but every bit helps. So again, I feel like the all boards clerk, maybe we lessen what she does and just focus solely on doing the minutes for the conservation and planning board. But as far as doing the paperwork for private contractors, I don't think we should be doing that. That should be on them.
Is that a motion?
Yes, it is.
Second.
Any other discussion from the audience? Come on up. Well, you got a microphone right there if it works. If you want to talk into the mic, Jeff. Perfect.
Okay. Again, I appreciate what you're trying to do. I just wish we had looked at it a little bit earlier, because we made some, I personally feel, significant budget cuts in some of the other departments that maybe we would have been a little bit more, whatever. I know you're trying to cut all of that down, but I'm just saying, I know Chief Blanchard has got an overtime situation. He projects it's going to be X amount, and we said we just don't have the money to do it. So again, every little bit helps, I know, but I'm sure that situation is something we need to think about also. I mean, I understand about the debt and the interest and principal and all that, but it's a balancing act. So I think this coming fiscal year, we'll be able to push things a little bit earlier, maybe, and more, I'm going to say belt tightening or whatever. But again, I look forward to that. I'm just a little bit nervous with all these last minute things in the last month. And I already mentioned at the last select board meeting about my consternation with the warrant articles, how much time we've wasted, at least from an advisory committee, voting on warrant articles that were either incorrect or didn't have the right number, or legal counsel's going to throw them out anyway. So that's just my personal opinion. But from a fiscal standpoint, I think, the stuff you're trying to do is fine, but just remember that we have other things we've already done. So, just to bear that in mind.
This is not to take away from any work that you have done and your board. I think you guys did a great job, so I want to make that clear.
That's not the point.
Right.
Sorry, the only point is that I just think some of these things maybe should have been done earlier, perhaps, or maybe it's just at this point we figured out, all right, well, we can chop a little bit here, chop a little bit there. I don't know.
So here's some of the problem, right? The way our election is set up and the way the election goes, and it's so close to the annual town meeting, it's almost cumbersome, right? So I talked to Ron a little bit today about moving the annual town meeting back a few more weeks to allow the newest member of the select board that comes on to have maybe more than a month's time once elected to go to an annual town meeting. That's pretty tough to learn all the figures and numbers and the procedure. I know it was really tough for me last year. It was approximately the same time. So if we can spread that town meeting out another couple weeks, I think it's just going to be a big help.
That's fine.
And that was one thing we did, Ron and I spoke to today.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jesus. Sorry about that.
Just a quick response to that. Rather than moving the annual town meeting back, I think it would be appropriate to have the town meeting prior to the election so that the person that is on the board who has formulated the budget has a seat at the table and is knowledgeable of what's going on. I would suggest that the election and the town meeting be swapped so that the election comes after the town meeting.
Well, there's definitely some validity to that. However, this board probably would have never agreed to these last-minute cuts that we're going to agree to tonight, right? So I think it was bad economics from the previous board to allow a treasurer to refinance a building that was already 10 years old, to refinance it for another 15. That's just bad economics. I don't have a degree in economics, but I wouldn't do that at home, and I don't think we should be doing it as a town.
I'm sorry, can I
Sure.
get this thing out of here? Again, I don't want to muddy the waters, but again, our fiscal state at that moment, I'm not sure if a 25-year was available because we had the audit problem and some other things. So I'm with you as far as maybe things should have been reconsidered as far as the refinancing at that time, but I think that might have been the best option available. So I don't want to cast any aspersions on anyone who made that decision, just because I do know that we had discussed that, as advisory committee at that point too. So again, I hear what you're saying, but I don't want to say that was a bad decision or not, because I don't know if a 25-year was available at that point when it was refinanced.
It probably was not available at that time, but to take and just make the minimum payments on the police station was not a good decision. And in speaking with the new town treasurer and speaking to the accountant, both of them reiterated that it was not a good decision for the finances of Brookfield.
Oh, that's fine. I'm just saying as far as the term of whatever was available, I don't know. I don't think, as I said, that's my point.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Steve.
Regarding cutting the all boards clerk hours to 5 hours a week, is that urgent to do at this point? And my reason for asking that is because the all boards clerk has only been hired for, I believe, 2 to 3 months now. On the Conservation Commission, she has attended 3 meetings, 2 of which meetings we had back-to-back weeks because we have a big backlog to catch up on. When the all boards clerk was originally hired, the select board at that time had a discussion to cut the all boards clerk hours from 15 hours a week to 10 hours a week. So that was already a cut at that point. And that cut was based on the input of the Board of Health, the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission chairs at that meeting. To make a cut at this moment without the foreseen input from those chairs, I think is a bit premature. So if this can be postponed and not affect the decision for the annual town meeting, I think that would be more appropriate, because getting the input from those chairs who will be affected by this cut, I think, is most important.
So I agree. I know there is a backlog that has been in place based on not having one, but I've not seen another all boards clerk in any other community other than the town that had it before Brookfield, where Kelly Robbins worked and instituted it, as well as Brookfield. So I'm not saying that I want to cut it all, because it is good for I'm sure it'd be a lot more work on you if you didn't have it being the chair of the conservation. but it's really hard for me to conceive that more than 20 hours a week would be needed to do minutes for your board and some other tasks that I'm sure you've asked the all boards clerk to do. So again, I'm just looking to grab any money to put, and all department heads were sent an email regarding any cuts, and I believe there was only 2 that have responded. One verbally to me and one to you, Ron. Is that correct?
Correct.
Of all the committees in town and boards and departments, only 1 committed on paper and 1 committed verbally to make a cut.
When was that message sent out?
So that we could put as much as we can.
When?
When?
Yes, when?
Earlier this week, Monday maybe?
Did the Conservation Commission receive that? I'm the chair and I have the access to the email address, and I did not
So
see that
I
email.
asked the town manager to do this, or the administrator, so I don't know if you were on that. The intent was to have you on it, so hopefully that you weren't missed, but.
I'm going to interrupt you 1 second. I kind of want to, so I'm going to be very honest, like, so the planning board and the ZBA, they get stipends to be on the board. So I guess my question to Ron, how would we have to go to a town meeting to hire a conservation, like just to make a conservation commission clerk? Like to redo the all boards clerk description?
I would say no, because it's not necessarily a new position. New positions have to come before an annual town meeting. This would be an existing position with just a different job description and scope, which is certainly within the realm of and the authority of the personnel board, which technically right now is the select board.
All right. I'm just saying that because, to be honest, like the ZBA hasn't met, I don't know how long.
Months.
I think we're going on a year almost, maybe, that they haven't met. So, and planning board meets once a month, and I agree, the Conservation Commission is fully backed up, and I understand, and I agree, going through the application process for conservation is a lot. It's a lot on the clerk, it's a lot doing the minutes. But I don't know if it's 10 hours a week between all 3, especially if the ZBA isn't meeting. So I don't know, those are my thoughts.
Okay. Well, thank you, Steve.
But I do wish that Steve was involved and was notified and that we got input from at least Steve or Kevin. The ZBA does not have a chair, right?
Tim resigned, and we're having extreme difficulty contacting the other members and having someone step up to take over the chair.
So is it safe to say, Steve, that the email was not on the Steve?
I am searching for it here. It may have been sent to the Conservation Commission instead of Steve.
I have access to the conservation email address. I did not see it.
Okay. I'm still looking for it.
Ron, I know you asked for a list of department head emails, which I gave you, not committee chairs, so.
Oh, okay, so that would probably explain it.
So it went to other department heads.
Okay, so I guess just to clarify, Steve, it sounds like it was sent to all department heads, not necessarily department heads and committee chairs. So that probably explains why you didn't see it.
We'll make sure that doesn't happen.
Thank you.
So, any other discussion relative all boards clerk?
No.
All in favor? Aye. It's a little after 6:30, so I'm going to move that we go to our 6:30 meeting, and we will come back to the rest of the agenda at the select board meeting when the budget presentation is over.
I'll try to make it short and sweet, guys.
Okay.
We have a HDMI. Standing up.
Did you bring this with you? No. Let me see. Okay. Glasses. Thank you. You have mine.
Yeah, okay.
Goldridge.
This is now 5,200.
Based on tonight.
Yeah.
All right, looks like a cozy crowd here, huh?
Gets smaller and smaller every
Yeah, I
year.
think so. Geez, I hope that's not a reflection on me. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of bring you through first like a high-level long-term perspective of what we're looking at. And for some of those things, it's going to be debt services. As you heard Rich talking about, and you can actually see it here on the chart, in 22 and 23 were very, very low, less than 1% of our debt, of our budget was for debt. In 2024, that's when we saw the hit, if you will, that Rich was talking about with the consolidated loan of 1.1 million. So obviously with debt service, the issue is that's also pulling for the principal and interest is coming out of your operational expenses. So more debt you have, more principal and interest payments, less available for police, fire, highway, so on and so forth. So, jumped ahead there. And so also another important component from a long-term perspective is the stabilization fund. That's kind of our savings account, our rainy day funds. Generally, the state likes to see you at around 5%, somewhere between 5 and 10%. As you can see, we're relatively stable, but we are actually going up slightly. And mind you, this is only through 24, which is in the state database. For fiscal year 25, it actually increased, or it's actually over $600,000. So we have a good trend there. And as you can see, we're right around that 5% mark. Now, here's an important aspect from Brookfield's perspective. This is only talking about the actual stabilization fund. In Brookfield, we've chosen to use not only a general stabilization fund, but also specific reserve funds. The big one for us right now is the roof, the roof for replacement for this particular building. Obviously, we have, at this point, over approximately $650,000 in there. So not only is our stabilization funds within those state guidelines, we're actually a little bit better off because we have these special reserve funds for something that we know, a large capital expense coming our way sooner versus later, AKA the roof. Another important aspect as far as financial stability over the long term is free cash. I know Marty's out there and he's just biting his lip right now because he thinks our free cash amount is too high. As you can see, in 2025, it's very high. It's over $1 million. There was a lot of one-time special occasions and events that made it $1 million. It's actually from the state's perspective and their guidelines, they say if your free cash is constantly high, then that probably points to a budgeting problem. You're probably not doing something quite right on the budgeting, the operational budgets. But as you can see, that was kind of a one-year spike. You can see we consolidate somewhere around $550,000 in our free cash, which, when we go to the next slide, is right around that 5% mark. That, once again, that's one of the guidelines the State Department of Revenue says municipalities should be shooting for. So once again, in 2025, we see it spike up, way up around 8-9%. But for the other years, we're kind of in that sweet spot of 5%. So once again, free cash. Brookfield has a great track record of utilizing free cash correctly, meaning for one-time projects, large capital projects, things along those lines. We've done a good job. We've had the fiscal discipline, and that actually helps speak to our financial stability over the long term. And then here again, we go back to the long-term debt. Here you can actually see the actual dollar amounts. And once again, what Rich has just spoken about a few minutes ago, you can see the large spike from very, very low in 20, 21, 22, the large spike. And that actually does have a lot to do with, because the key here is to long-term debt, which is obviously notes, borrowing, bonds, something along those lines. The financial position of Brookfield previous to that was so tenuous that we could not get long-term bonds. So that's why I think you saw the spike and the part of the reason for the consolidation. Yeah, and to be honest with Rich is 100%. I'm 100% on board with what Rich is saying. It was odd that you would go to a 15-year note at nearly 5% unless you wanted to pay down the principal and that was part of your game plan. Doesn't seem like that was part of the game plan because it hasn't occurred. I think what Rich is advocating for is, well, let's do it. If it's available and we have additional, be it free cash or money available, let's pay down some of that debt principal. So obviously, if in Rich's argument, that $150,000 or so, if that's paid down on principal, that's going to shorten the life of that particular loan because we're paying down directly on principal. We're not touching the interest. And the key there is, as hopefully interest rates come down, we'll be able to consolidate that much easier and even have a smaller debt footprint, which obviously ends up helping our operational budget. So with that kind of gives us the long-term look, if you will, with regards to the town. And I'll be honest, we're not in bad shape, quite frankly. We're doing pretty good from a long-term perspective and a strategic perspective. However, as we come into our annual budget process, there are some yellow flags out there. And just to kind of walk you through this executive summary, as you can see, the top half is the revenues, the bottom half are the expenses. Bring your attention to the third column in from the left and the variance portion. If you notice, utilizing the tax levy, we see a slight increase there, but more or less our taxation, approximately $250,000 increase for fiscal year 26 versus 25. And then you take a look at the local receipts. You see it actually trending down, which is certainly a yellow flag. When your local receipts start to trend down, that should get your attention. And we should definitely try to figure out, one, why is it occurring? Two, how can we reverse that trend? Because that can be very dangerous in the long term. Local aid, relatively minuscule, $38,000. Well, guess what, folks? Get used to it, because the state is not going to increase our local aid. That's just not going to happen. That's just the way the state formula works. So we just have to anticipate next year we'll probably be in that same boat where it'll be about approximately a 1% increase. Now, here's the new one. You see the ambulance receipts. This is part of the I guess, project, if you will, that Lori Barkus, the town accountant, and I have been working on. Right now, as you know, the ambulance is really funded all through warrant articles. It's outside of the regular operating budget. I'll be honest, I've never heard of that. Lori says none of the towns that she's done accounting for have done that. Beth provided some background, and it literally goes back 25, 30 years, having to do with, I guess, kind of safety nets and things along those lines. I think Brookfield's track record as far as making smart decisions is such that we don't have to have those quote-unquote protections in place anymore. And I think it's time to welcome the ambulance department back into the larger town budget. So as you can see, the receipts here, Lori will look you in the face and say, yep, that $340,000 is just merely what she anticipates they're going to get this year, and she's going to bring it forward. We got to start somewhere, so she figured let's just level fund the receipts and bring it forward. That could be up, that could be down. We needed a starting point, so it seemed logical. So as you can see, we'll bring it to the bottom line there for the revenues. Our new revenues anticipated for fiscal year 26 are that $265,000. You can see it's approximately 2.5%, which not bad, it's doable. But once again, yellow flag, those local receipts on the downward trend. Now we get to the fun part, the expenses. Now you notice I've categorized mandatory expenses, which are the schools, debt, and the assessments. Assessments are things like the retirement, Worcester County retirement system. That's going to be our health insurance, things that are assessed to us, and we're just going to pay them. They're non-negotiable. It's not like we can cut them. They are what they are. So as you can see there, schools came in at approximately $155,000 increase over fiscal year 25. Now, obviously a significant chunk out of the $265,000 of additional revenues. But if you look at the variance percentage, 2.7%, I can guarantee you there's probably about 300 towns and municipalities that would love to have had their schools go up only 2.7%. So I think hats off to Deb Boyd and her crew for helping keep that down. Another yellow flag next year, I'm not so sure I'd expect an increase of 2.7%. It could certainly be higher than that. Now comes a real lively one here, the debt and assessments. Key ones here are two in particular. Obviously, we've already talked about the debt portion of it. Under the assessments, the Worcester County retirement system went up $88,000. And it has to do with some actuarial calculations and really catch up. Bottom line is some smart actuary figured out that they haven't been taking enough in assessments, and they have to play catch up. That catch up is the $88,000 we see in this fiscal year budget. Worcester County Retirement has warned us, expect something similar next year, and the year after, and the year after. So we got bad news coming down the pike there. Raise another yellow flag. Good news in this particular line item is the switch from Maya Health Insurance to the Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust. That has an actual savings right now in the fiscal year 26 budget of approximately $135,000. That's just for the town. The employees themselves are also going to be realizing approximately $100,000 in their premium payments. So that's an important aspect. If you look at the employee pays in their compensation package in general, that's a big plus. So even if a raise doesn't seem to be that much, they are also getting quite a break from the town with regards to the health assessments and premiums that are hitting them on their paycheck on a bi-weekly basis. So now we come down to the discretionary expenses. Well, as you can see, just once again, taking a quick look down at the variance percentage, we did pretty good with a tight budget, and frankly, it sounds like it just tightened up a little bit more about 15 minutes ago. General government, you can see, went up less than 1%. Public safety went up a little over 3%. Part of that is contractual with the police union contract. We're also seeing some increased expenses with the fire, just based upon the higher call rates, as well as for the ambulance. Public Works actually went down almost 1%. We did not tell Kyle that when we hired him, but yes, his budget is being reduced by approximately 1%. And you can see the other departments are going up slightly, because even the water department at 3%, a lot of that is really just an accounting change having to do with how their electricity is now falling under their expenses instead of under a kind of a general municipal electric account. So bottom line is, if you look at it, and Beth, if she was here, she'd be throwing something at me. I'm going to refer to this as a deficit spending budget. And her argument is, how can you say that? Look at that. And what I'll do is bring your attention to the very bottom, that middle column, the $201,000. That's our quote unquote headroom, if you will, between where we're spending and the levy limit. So we've got a healthy amount of space for that headroom going up towards the levy limit, which, quite frankly, it's not a bad thing, obviously, because now you can expend up to that 200. Well, the Department of Revenue is going to tell you don't do that. That is very dangerous. For the simple fact is, I will now draw your attention to the figure just to the right of that minus 27,000, which once again is probably a little bit less than that now after the decision from the select board. But when you have more new expenses versus new revenues, that's an unsustainable trend, plain and simple. And granted, it's a small amount, and because we have the headroom, we can absolutely not worry about that for this particular year. But if you continue that trend, that's where the problem begins. So I guess another red flag, or yeah, I would even call it a red flag. We're beyond the yellow flags. Next year, we can look at definitely a significant increase in our retirement assessment. Probably a close to a double-digit increase in our health insurance premiums, just based upon the last few years. And I would not be surprised if the schools went up higher than 2.7%. And then you figure in the fact that our local receipts and local revenue is actually on a slight downward trend. That's a cause for concern. And that's definitely probably something we want to keep an eye on as we go through the year. So now,
Ron,
yep.
Do you have any projection on new growth for next year? Have you talked to the assessor?
Yeah. In fact, as Jeff can attest to, back in probably late January or so, Lori had came up with a projection for all the local revenues and receipts, including things like new growth. And just probably not even a month ago, probably a few weeks ago, she actually had to revise downward those local receipts projections. Part of that had to do with new growth. New growth was not to the level that we had seen in previous years. As Lori was able to gain more actuals, she said, she looked me in the eye, she said, Ron, I just have no confidence in that particular number. And I told her, I said, well, let's use the right number. I'd much rather have a surprise in April of 25 versus April of 26 when we're running short. So,
And then in speaking to Patty yesterday, she said our next year is going to be down significant from this year.
yeah. So once again, yet another yellow flag and something for us, the financial management team, to be aware of. So I mean, I know I'm kind of painting a bit of a gloomy short-term picture here, even though our long-term is looking good. One thing that should give everyone in Brookfield confidence is we have a very strong financial management team. Between Lori Barkas, town accountant, Sharon Ashley as the treasurer, Brenda Parrish as their treasurer collector, they are very good at what they do, and they are very proactive. And they communicate well, and if something doesn't quite smell right, they let everyone know as soon as they possibly could.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Are you open for questions?
Bring them up.
So a number of years ago, and I think it was 3, the electric rates, the electric utilities all went into a single fund.
Correct.
It's a line item. The town was going to pay for all of the electric.
That's what I've heard, yes.
Right. And so when they did that, from the water commissioner's standpoint, or the water department standpoint, they reduced our budget because that was taken out, was going to be, electric bills were going to be paid for by the town.
Right.
The water commissioners were asked to submit a budget, which we did, level funded. We did that a couple of months ago. I understand that Tuesday night, it was proposed that, I believe it was $3,000 is what I've heard, was taken out of our excess funds and moved into utilities?
Nope. What was done on Tuesday night was, it came to Lori's attention that the water department evidently had not been, the water department bills were being paid, I guess, out of the municipal electric account.
Which was the agreement.
And there was a discrepancy of, in Lori's estimation, $3,000. So what was done based upon Lori's recommendation, the $3,000 was taken from the municipal electric account, which I believe was at $52,000, more or less level funded, and it was reduced to $49,000. The $3,000 that was taken out of that account was then put into the water department's expense account to account for the $3,000 in electrical that would then be directly billed to the water department and the water department expenses account.
So this all happened 2 days ago.
Well, it was approved by the select board 2 days ago, but Lori probably found out about or discovered it approximately a week or so ago.
So nobody has relayed any of this information to the water commissioners. We have not had any time to meet, nor will we have any time to meet before the annual town meeting. And so the town's agreement was that they were going to cover all the electrical expenses, and that money was taken out of our budget. $3,000 is not going to cover maybe a quarter of the year. I would like to consider that the town continue to pay the electric bills, including the water departments, until the water commission has a chance to review the history of the bills and to create a line item in our own budget so that we can pay the bills. But to do it without anybody giving us any information, without relaying this information, I think is short-sighted. And I would really like it to carry on this way for this year, and then we reconsider it for next year's budget. That we, the water commissioners, will create a line item for electric utilities and will budget it as such. But we don't have any opportunity to even talk about this as a commission. I only heard about this tonight.
I did have a long conversation with Dennis earlier today, and expressed more or less the same concern. So obviously I apologize. I thought Lori had notified you all, and then I found out that she hadn't. So I'll take the blame for that, for not confirming.
We've also requested a meeting with Laurie about a month ago to discuss some accounting things which she apparently has some issues with, which we have no idea what she's talking about. And we would really like to sit down and come to a conclusion as to what her issue is and how do we resolve it. There is very little communication, actually zero, between Laurie and our department. So I would ask that at least in the future, we kind of be given some consideration to, particularly if you're going to make a modification to our budget, which we submitted, on time, as requested, level funded, and all of a sudden, it gets changed in 2 nights.
Well, with regards to the meeting, the Scanlon Associates is performing a full town audit as they do on an annual basis. They have finished much of their due diligence at this point, so they're just kind of cobbling together their actual report. From what I understand from Lori, from a discussion we had today, it's probably 2 weeks or so out. So we'll see what the findings are from the audit. And obviously, if there continues to be some anomalies or whatever, then by all means, I think we all have to sit down and figure out what the issues are, and more importantly, how do we resolve them. So that you absolutely have my assurance will occur shortly after we receive the Scanlon report, assuming once again that it does show up as an anomaly.
I'd like to respond also. Don, I would like to respond to that also from a selectman perspective. That was in the budget. I'm not sure how it got started, taking the $3,000 out of the fund. I know there's a big discussion about the Z credits and how it gets dispersed throughout the community. I did talk to Lori today, and I talked to Dennis today. The one thing I would strongly recommend is your board have an emergency meeting and come up with an adjustment to your line item. I don't think, and I have no more, I may have had 1 day advance notice of this than you, so I apologize that you didn't get it sooner. I wish I had got it sooner as well. However, I have the strong belief that the taxpayers of this community that are not water users should not be supplementing the water department by paying that bill annually. I don't know when that was put forward, how it was done. I would never have agreed to it, but I will say, in speaking to Dennis, it could be as much as $16,000 that the taxpayers that are not water users are contributing to the water users. I can't wrap my head around how that's okay. It should not be okay, and I want to say that there's plenty of time between now and the town meeting to get those amounts, so that if this lingers for another month or two to resolve the issue, I'm okay with that. But I think there's more than enough time for the water department to have either an emergency meeting or just a 2 board member meeting, so that you can discuss changing the line item for the town meeting and amending it on the town hall floor. And I think that would be appropriate. And again, I apologize that you got this so late notice, but I didn't. I only got it 1 day before you. But I think that's the appropriate thing to do.
I am not available for an emergency meeting for another week and a half, which puts us the day before the town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that can happen, maybe it won't. I do agree with you that the non-water users should not fund the water department. They didn't prior to the electric bills being put into one account. We budgeted for that. It's the way it should be. That's the way the water department would do it. Mm-hmm. But not between now and in 2 weeks from now. So I'm asking that it continue until we can have a chance to resolve this. Again, nobody's talked with us, and that's very disappointing.
I agree with the lack of communication, and I'm not sure where to point the finger, but I'm probably not even going to point the finger, because I want to look forward and not back. So it's been how it was explained to me, it's roughly $1,300 a month, is somewhere around shy of $16,000. There is no doubt in my mind that if you're not available, the other two commissioners with the secretary and the full-time water guy could come up with an article to read to amend the article for an additional $16,000 on the town hall floor. I'm not going to support the taxpayer of Brookfield supplementing the water users $16,000 for another fiscal year. So if it took a month or two for it to carry over, I'm totally good with that. But I want to resolve this problem as quick as possible. And I apologize that, again, but I only knew 1 day before you did. So, or maybe 2 the most.
Can I just add a point of clarification? Sure. Or a question? It was my understanding when this was first instituted, it was presented to the advisory committee like 3 years ago. It was Kelly's grand plan to make things more efficient, to put all of the utilities into one account and pay one bill a month, and then somehow each department would figure out, or I don't know who would figure out exactly what percentage would be paid charged on to each department. I think that was how it was. I'm not quite remember all the things, but then once it was determined that the first year it wasn't implemented because it was just logistically too difficult, and then it was implemented for 1 year, and then Kelly left and Ron came in. So I think there's been a lot of confusion as far as where the utilities for each department are coming from and who's paying them and all that. As Donna's mentioned, I wasn't even on my radar screen until Tuesday, but I agree that we should stick with whatever the system is. We should just stick with it and move ahead with it, because going back and forth to various different systems, I don't think is a good thing for the town.
Jeff, how simple would it be to add 16,000 to the line item when we amended it on the town hall floor?
No, I'm
pretty
saying
simple.
No.
amendment.
You misunderstand what I'm saying. Is
Okay.
that I'm sort of. Again, this is just past history to sort of put everyone in a. I mean, it's nothing. I think we were just. Whatever Ron is trying to do, I think I agree with, and the advisory committee agree with, because we didn't understand why everything was consolidated in one account 3 or 2 years ago, whenever it was, and then it was just a mess to try to implement. So the way things used to be is what I would agree with, and if it has to be done on the town floor, then that's fine. But I don't think it's anything. I mean, this communication problem is one thing, but I don't think it's anything that was done, maliciously with bad intent. It was just trying to undo something that was probably a bad decision to begin with 3 years ago.
I mean, it would be no different than me asking the police chief to budget to pay for the town hall, right? I mean, if I took that money out of his budget, he'd be jumping up and down right now. So, Don, I agree that we need more communication, and I say to you here and now, we're going to get it. Ron is working his butt off to make things improve for the town. It's taken a little time.
What's the $3,000? Where did that come from? What does it cover? I mean, that's not even close.
That wasn't money taken out of your budget from speaking to Lori. That was money put into your budget. Are you aware of that?
It was taken out of our excess account, right?
Yeah, but it was put into your...
Whose decision is that?
No, nothing's been touched in your, it was literally taken from the municipal electricity account and
Put in your
added
budget.
to the water department expense account.
So no one took anything from...
What is that number for?
That came from Lori, and I'll be honest, I don't know where she.
It's $1,000 a month. I mean, if that's what we're talking about for an electric bill.
And I agree, it's not enough, right? And you didn't have a chance to budget for it. So it's short, but we're still 10 days out or 2 weeks out. It's a pretty simple thing to ask for another $9,000 based on amending the article and explaining what happened. And the residents are going to go along with that. I feel very sound that the residents will.
Sure they will. But what's going to happen to how does the water department raise money?
It's done. We raise taxes. You got to raise your water bill.
Exactly.
It's really so.
Exactly.
Why? But why are you even defending the fact that the residents of Brookfield that are not on the water service pay for this? I don't even understand your point.
I am not defending that.
You
That's
are.
how it was set up by the town.
I get it, but now
I previously said our water department would make a line item. We will budget that.
we can't go backwards and say, hey, Kelly made a bad decision and she shouldn't have done it, right? We can't fix that, but we sure can fix it going forward, and that's what I intend to do come June 5th at that town meeting.
Okay.
Will Lori provide the water department with bills, correct numbers? I mean, is 16,000 a good number?
I think what we need to do is for Lori, myself, Dennis, probably Don from the representative of the Water Commission, get together, go through, how did you figure out, where did that $3,000 number come from? Dennis thinks it's far too low. Compare numbers and come up with, as Mr. Chafee had indicated, agree on what's the quote-unquote right number, and let's adjust that at town meeting floor. it should be relatively straightforward once we can agree on what that number should be.
Right, but again, just to clarify, it's a line item on the budget, so we're going to have to get the moderator to allow
That's correct.
a change for a line item, because before he was doing by column or by grouping last year, and he was very
If we just
persistent
question
on-
the article, someone questions the article and then specifies the line item, I think that will be easily accomplished.
I'll give Bill the heads up, and then Bill and I can come up with a compromise as far as.
right. I mean,
how
I know he
it's
runs a
supposed to be.
tight ship, but
Yes, he does.
we just don't want to have a whole big mess because
That's correct.
of this, yeah.
But I do want to go on to say that I did speak to Dennis today, and he said that the water commissioners meet sometime in August, and that's when they adjust the rate. So if we have to go from June 5th to August the way it is, I don't want to totally flip the apple cart, right? So there's some degree of that we can adjust, but you're right, Don. You're going to have to go up with the rates because you can't absorb that. And I don't want to see the residents pay more for water, but I definitely don't want to see the rural residents subsidize the water users. And I don't understand how it could have gotten this far from 3 years ago that, and it's not your fault, and I understand, no one's pointing blame on you, but I don't understand how someone hasn't advocated for the residents of Brookfield that are not on the water prior to now. So, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no.
Thank you.
That's why we're here. I'd rather have these discussions here versus town meeting floor. And this way, hopefully, we can have a
Well, I
compromise
think
and a
we will
resolution.
rehash it then too.
I'm going to think positive thoughts. All right, so here, I'll just try to go page by page, and this is the actual FY26 budget. Here on this page, we're talking mostly general government. You're going to see it includes cost of living adjustments for wages of 2% or 2.0%, which was approved by the advisory committee and the select board. Here on this page, you're going to see total technology went up a little bit, and that's in preparation for going out to a 3-year bid for technology support contract. Legal services is probably the big one on this page. You'll notice that went up significantly, 25%, from $60,000 to $75,000. Unfortunately, that is based upon actual usage. We are involved in several lawsuits at this point, and these lawsuits are in federal court, they're in state court, and we have to defend the town, and the only way we can do that in those venues is with town council. So I'll be honest with you, 75,000 is probably a bit conservative, seeing as the trend is now getting close to $8,000 to $10,000 per month. So that is, I was talking about the yellow flags before, that is definitely a yellow flag that we're going to need to monitor throughout the year. You'll also notice the Communications Committee is a new committee, and we have a slight amount of money for mailings and some other expenses. And then kudos to Mr. Clark, who is the advisory committee's clerk and has been for evidently several years, and he is taking a pay cut, big time, down to $1. Yes, he never did.
When Don Taft, he did his pay cut, when was it? I don't know if he took the money or not, but I never went into that.
Yep, Jeff would not even accept the $1, he
All I
said.
have to do is suffer the complaints when I make a typographical error on the minutes. Or when this whole crap, if I'm not detailing everything, but other than that, it's okay.
All right, so
Well, I think you're doing a great job, so.
Okay. I have back to you.
now moving along to this page, I think a highlight here, kind of once again, what I want to do is to highlight some employees that have kind of gone above and beyond, at least in my particular view and perspective. If you notice under treasurer, second grouping down, the assistant treasurer has been zeroed out. And that is a direct result of our current treasurer, Sharon Ashley, and she indicated she does not need it. If she goes away on vacation, and I can attest to it, she will answer emails and she will address any issues that pop up while she's quote unquote off the clock. And furthermore, if you go on to that next grouping, you'll also notice collector clerk has been zeroed out as well. And once again, that is Sharon, who has indicated that if Brenda's on vacation or she's pulled out of, in fact, she had a recent death in the family and she had to leave right in the middle of excise tax season. Sharon had volunteered, she is bonded, she said she is more than willing to take the collections and whatever cash payments are necessary. So I think kudos to there. It kind of shows some of the dedication that we have in some of our employees here in Brookfield. So moving down, next you'll see it jumps out from a percentage perspective, but the dollar amounts are pretty short. Conservation Commission expenses have gone up considerably. You'll see that in the second grouping towards the top, and that is to set aside some money for utilizing a conservation agent or consultant. There are going to be experts. The Conservation Commission admits they're certainly not experts at this point, and when they feel as though they're in a complex situation, this will give them a little bit of money to be able to reach out to the experts to advocate for the Conservation Commission. Other than that,
where did the training go for the conservation?
Training is, if you notice, will actually be under their expenses.
Okay.
You can see their expenses also.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, technically, it did go in as training, but it's for $1,500. And once again, that is we have potentially 3 new Conservation Commission commissioners, and this is to allocate some training money for them. Okay, next page down, we have the police, contractual increase for the police department. We do see a significant reduction in the part-time and overtime account. And one of the things that, I guess depends on your perspective under the good news or bad news, the latest new hire for the police is very experienced. He's very experienced, has a lot of licenses and accreditations and credentials, and Chief Blanchard was very happy to pull him in. That's the good news. He's going to hit the ground running. The bad news is, since he is a very experienced police officer, he's not coming in at the bottom of the range, he's coming up towards the top of the range, and that's part of the adjustment that you see there. But all in all, definitely a big step forward for the police department. Yeah.
But that just kind of leads me to my question for the overtime. In order to accommodate that, some money, $23,000, was moved from the overtime into the salaries.
Correct.
So the $23,000 that's in the overtime account right now will not contractually fulfill the overtime that they get per their contract. So if and when I run out of money and I'm not able to, because it was suggested by the advisory committee to kind of grab that money from somewhere else in my accounts, which there's really no free room in any of these accounts. Is there going to be any money to fulfill that once I go over and deficit spend the overtime account?
What is the amount that would contractually?
It's 46,000.
How can that be?
What do you mean? Because of the overtime that they get.
How many weeks vacation are we talking about?
I don't have those figures off the top of my head right now. Sean has 4 weeks, Lee has 4 weeks, the other ones have 2 weeks. So I don't know, I have to get my calculator to figure out exactly what they are. The new guys have 2 weeks.
Just the contractual overtime is 46,000?
So technically no. So if you do all their benefit time, their sick time and everything like that, it's over $100,000. You know, I did that figure before, but we never budget, you know, that somebody's going to take all their sick time, all their, holidays and stuff like that, because they just usually get paid out for them. So even though it's $100,000, we never spend $100,000. But the point is, the $23,000 will not cover the overtime.
So wait a minute, you had roughly $43,000 in overtime last year. Is that correct?
43.
$43,000 in your overtime budget last year.
For the FY '25, it was like 57 or something, but
Over
what?
57? So,
Yeah.
but you were 3 officers short at times, right? At least 2 officers short. And you paid tons of overtime as a result.
So that's this year, and so that's how I came up with it. I took away the year we were 2 short, so it wasn't last fiscal year, and I went back and I did the average of the overtime that was spent, and it was about 43,000. That wasn't including the year that I was 2 short. And where I came up with the 46,000 was I just added the 3% to the average. Was like $43,000 the last 2
You've
years.
been 2 officers short for this whole last fiscal year, with the exception
Right, and I
of the
didn't-
last 2 months of the new officer.
Right, and I
now
didn't
we're
count that
still-
yet.
And we're still an officer short. And how much money have you spent in overtime based on that?
I don't have the figure for you right now.
But I think it's in excess of 40,000
Oh yeah,
in overtime.
yeah. So this year I had 57,000 for
And
overtime,
roughly-
and I cut that down on the budget presentation. So I went from 57,000 to the 46,000 is what I asked for. Okay, and how I got that number is I took this fiscal year out because it was such an anomaly because we were so short-staffed. And I took the 2 previous years, and it was $43,000 that we spent.
But because we were short officers. Now that we have the officers, shouldn't we technically go down in overtime?
Yes, which is why I cut it from the 57,000 to the 46,000.
So you only paid $10,000 in overtime to your men because we were short 2 people?
No.
Well, the numbers aren't working.
Because I'm talking about the previous years, the 43,000 we spent.
Let's just say on this year, you were short 2.
But it doesn't compute to this year, you know? So I'm gonna spend all of that money, all of that 57,000 most likely. I don't have the figures for you right now.
It would seem to me that going into our next fiscal year, having 2 additional officers,
Right.
you would not use nearly the overtime that you used in this fiscal year, being short 2 officers.
Correct, but not $23,000 less, no.
Each officer having roughly 2,000 hours per officer on an annual basis. How would you come close to that being short 2 officers?
Because it's their benefit time, it's their vacation time, it's their sick time, the holiday time that they take off, any extra court that they have to go to, and any late calls that they get called on. You know, so it's always a moving number.
So it almost seems like if we're short officers, it's cheaper to go that way than to be fully staffed.
No, it's not. So again, with what they're owed and time off, it's going to go over the $23,000. I haven't spent less than $23,000 since I can't remember when in overtime. You know, whether I'm full staffed or not full staffed. You know, so my question is, if and when we go over the $23,000,
You have to stay within your budget. So I guess my thought is make a good presentation on the town hall floor, because I've seen this police budget grow and grow and grow. And frankly, I haven't seen, we have 200 more people now approximately than we did 30 years ago, when this budget was not even 1/4 what it is now. And I don't see that the crime is there. I think Brookfield has been very, very conservative. I mean, very generous with the police department to allow this budget to grow where it's at, but we're trying to rein it back some. So perhaps maybe occasionally not have a midnight shift or something like that. We have the state police right in town. We would like to see you manage with the numbers that we have based on, and how you balance that with your officers is going to be up to you. But, you know, hiring an officer at the highest end changed almost from the low-end officer to the high-end officer, over $20,000 in one person.
That's right, $23,000.
$23,000. That's a big number to ask the residents to pay.
So you're saying there'd be no other money if I spend the $23,000 overtime?
Well, I mean, if we had an annual town or a special town meeting of some kind, something like that, but I don't see where else it would come from. Do you have any idea, Ron?
No, I mean, obviously, in a pinch, we have municipal relief, but, I mean, you certainly don't want to have to count on that. Because I mean, from year to year, you never know what's going to be available.
Doesn't it depend on the time of year when it occurs? I mean, if it's towards the end of the year, then there's transfers or reserve fund and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, Lori's hands are tied by Mass General Law that she can't do those municipal transfers until May 1st through the end of the fiscal year.
Right. But I know there was, again, I don't know all the legalities, but there was at a certain point when the police contract was being negotiated, if last year we were going to be way short, we could, I forget, it was deficit spend or something until we had a special town meeting or whatever it was, but there was some sort of relief thing you're talking about, I guess.
Correct, and technically, if you think about it, we had that special town meeting back in the mid-November timeframe, and the chief still had ample amount of money in his budget because he had the full budget to work with. But it was an anticipated deficit, and that's where Lori crunched the numbers with the chief, figured out what that delta was going to be based upon the new contract, and that was fully funded at the special town meeting, so that the chief wouldn't have to be in a deficit situation such as today.
All right, I guess that's it.
Okay, so I guess moving down to the fire department, you can see there was some significant reductions there as well that the select board and the advisory committee had agreed to based upon what was requested. You see that in the advisory committee and select board columns versus that middle column, the FY26 requested. So once again, trying to be as conservative as possible in doing addressing the budget, because we knew we did in fact have that deficit that we had to deal with. EMS department is the new guy on the block, as we had talked about. If you notice, there's a lot of zeros on the left-hand columns, but these are all numbers based upon actuals for this year, plus some additions due to expected call volume increases. So these are admittedly best guesses. Best guesses by Donna and Chief Martell, and once again, something we'll have to keep an eye on. Okay, next one is on the next page. A lot of level funded budget here through a lot of the inspectors, zoning enforcement officer, so on and so forth. You'll notice, I guess, percentage-wise, it looks large, but dollar amount-wise, they're not. Animal control officer and the animal control assistant. This is reflective of, we actually now have an animal control officer who is very active in doing her job, and we found out rather quickly when we did really a salary survey for surrounding areas that we were well underpaying our animal control officer, especially once again, now we have an active one. So you'll see that, once again, slight increases dollar-wise. Next, you'll see at the very top of this next page, the tree warden expense going from $15,000 down to $1,000. And that is based upon the fact that I believe it was last year, maybe the year before, there was a $60,000 appropriation for tree removal that has not been touched yet. So the wisdom of the advisory committee and the select board is, why don't we pull down from that particular account since it's already been set aside, and we can see the operational savings here. School committee, as I had indicated, it is what it is. There's not a lot we can say or do since we're in a region. Next one down, highway. You'll notice there we have the new superintendent, but also a significant decrease in the operator wages. This is reflective of 2 full-timers, which we will be having 2 full-time new operators starting as of Tuesday. And this is actually also has a little additional for additional operator who's going to help out in projects, specific projects. Also, seasonal workers has been increased fairly significantly, $14,000. And this is so that the operators can truly work at what they're skilled at, which is certainly not lawn mowing. We're going to have seasonal workers do the lawn mowing. Yeah, Rick?
But one big difference for the change, now we have 3 full-time highway operators, 1 being the superintendent and 2 full-timers. A couple of years ago, with a different town administrator, she suggested to the existing highway superintendent that, oh, you just need another employee. That'll kind of make things better. That wasn't the answer. The highway committee did a whole lot of work on that and came up with 2 full-time operators and a superintendent. And that's where we're at now. And like Ron just said, we are now fully staffed. And then we did add some part-time wage, and the second part-timer has now been hired to continue the mowing in town. So, thank you.
Yeah, I think basically you're going to see a much more effective, a much more productive highway department
Than in a long time.
Okay, next page, cemetery, pretty straightforward. Board of Health. One of the things that you'll notice is a fairly significant change. The Board of Health agent is no longer funded in the operational budget. We're now part of the Leicester Regional Board of Health, and we utilize their agent. And Transfer Station, Council on Aging, you see a relatively minor increase for Council on Aging Director, Program Director, and that's literally because of the expansion and the popularity of the Senior Center programs. Okay.
Excuse me.
Nope. Steve?
I might be out of the loop on this, but can you go back to the Board of Health wages?
Sure.
I recall from a past Board of Health meeting, I believe it was discussed that although we are part of the Leicester Coalition, we are, as a participating municipality, supposed to pay into that in some capacity. By nixing this budget, has that been passed by the Board of Health? Is there a concern about doing?
Yeah, this is actually at the recommendation of Maureen and the Board of Health.
Okay.
I believe now what you see is it's actually now an assessment on the revenue side. I didn't do it for brevity's sake, but there's a much more detailed spreadsheet that Lori keeps for the revenues, and the health assessment is actually part of that.
Okay, thank you.
Good catch, though. I like that.
Someone's paying attention.
Okay, next, moving down libraries, it's just the 2% COLA that we see in there. And moving along, really a lot of just level funding. Debt and interest, I think we went over that in the earlier part, and also through the select board meeting. You can see that there are some increases or some decreases. The bottom line is it's really more or less within $2 of being level funded. And I think it certainly sounds like the select board is on the radar screen is to get that even lower in the coming years. Next one, the assessments and other mandated expenses. This is what I warned you about. This is kind of the bad news, good news and bad news. You can see Worcester County retirement up to $88,000, as I said. Prepare for at least something in that ballpark again next year. Now, the other biggie here is the group health and life insurance. Well, as you can see, we're actually realizing a $25,000 reduction versus last year because of the switch, once again, from Maya to the Hampshire County Insurance Trust. That $25,000 savings will not be there next year. It's going to probably be an increase, and it's going to probably be a significant increase. As you can see, just doing simple math, if it goes up 10%, it's a $75,000 increase just in that one line item. And then last but not least, the water department. I think we've had a lot of discussions about that, and looks like there's going to be some more discussions occurring over the next week or so. So that brings us to our bottom line. And once again, we're not in bad shape. I don't want to be too negative in that regards, but there is definitely a lot of yellow flags flying, and we're going to have to be very cautious and be monitoring these figures closely as we move through fiscal year 26. Which now brings us hopefully to a quick one here. Just wanted to review what the financial warrant articles are. All of these are coming from free cash. Free cash amount, which Lori verified just this morning. Currently that balance is $634,502. And as you can see, some relatively small amount for a previous fiscal year. Then we have the firefighting equipment at $35,000. I'm working with the chief and coming up with a kind of like almost like a capital plan where he's going to extrapolate his equipment purchases out for 10 years. That's the lifespan of any protective equipment. So from the chief did indicate this is a particularly bad year at $35,000. But what we'll be able to do, hopefully, is to smooth that out so that we don't see the spikes and the valleys, so to speak. Road line painting, sidewalk, protective equipment for the highway, that's pretty usual stuff that seems to be in every year. $15,000 for the IT infrastructure. It's really to bring fire, highway, and library back into the town network. Jacob had indicated he is concerned about some of the PCs at the library, and this will help alleviate any of the potential security issues there. Website upgrade, $5,000. Frankly, it's a bargain compared to what we had received in some previous quotes. The police station PC replacements is $12,000, and we're actually going to be able to upgrade the PCs so at the police station and in the cruisers so that they can become Windows 11 compatible, which is necessary for an upgrade for their software system that they utilize a lot. And we're actually going to be able to start that with Jacob. He's actually already identified a couple kind of more urgent ones that we're going to be able to address sooner versus later. Air purifiers and dehumidifiers, approximately $5,000, and that's so basically the public health air assessment, the last two ones, we had one last summer and one probably 5 or 6 years prior to that, indicated the town hall environment is polluted, frankly, and most of it is emanating from the basement. And we replaced the rug as one step towards that, and this is another step to hopefully remediating those particular issues. Here's the important string attached, if you will, for switching over to the Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust is part of, I'll refer to it as a buy-in, even though technically it's not a buy-in to their health their health insurance program. They require 3 months premium to set up as a reserve. It can be spread out over 2 years, which is going to be approximately $250,000. I'm advocating utilizing $175 since we did have a healthy amount of free cash this year, so it takes a little bit less of a burden off of what's happening next year in case our free cash isn't at that same amount. And then also, that's actually a typo there. No, actually, no, I see it. The roof stabilization fund, which is currently at approximately $650,000. I'm advocating utilizing $200,000 in free cash, which would bring us up to approximately $850,000, which puts us right in the striking range. The estimates that we received from a roof study and assessment last fall was anywhere from $900,000 to $1.3 million to replace the roof up here. So we might actually see that something happening there as soon as next fiscal year.
With the
Yep.
contribution, okay.
Yeah, with the schools they realize, and Superintendent Boyd realizes and has acknowledged that, yes, the schools will have skin in the game. What that extra dollar amount is, she's not committing to just yet, but I'm going to be working with Superintendent Boyd to determine what that amount is and when it becomes available. And if it's a significant enough amount of money, I think we'll be ready to start pulling the trigger and getting things working on the roof. We do have a citizen's petition that if it's passed, will have some type of a dollar amount associated with it, which frankly would have to come from free cash, but at this point we have nothing. As you can see, the remaining free cash balance is $151,000 minus whatever those time clocks cost. So that starts to get towards where Selectman Chafee was talking about utilizing that potentially to start paying down some of the debt principal.
That's fine, but you would make a motion on the floor then to put the additional remaining
That's correct.
into a,
Yes, sir.
and would it be based on whatever the interest on the various loans, pay the highest ones off first, or what?
Basically,
The
we have to
percentages,
split the loan. Half of it is for the fire truck, half is for the police station, roughly $75,000 each one, and they're both at 4.7%. It's a combined loan.
Okay, what was the other one that was at 2, you said? I forgot which.
Yeah, there's a smaller loan. What is it? Sawmill.
Sawmill,
Yep.
okay.
Very small amount,
'cause
and
we
it's
get-
at 2%.
So we're not looking to pay that one.
Yeah.
No. We, as an advisory committee, had said, when we were trying to get the budget squared away, said, well, if we decrease the interest on the sawmill, maybe, but then he said it was 2, so we just dropped that.
Right.
This is fine.
Yeah, currently, right now, Sharon is realizing 2.6% interest for our large accounts.
That's what we're receiving versus paying 4.7.
So then, I guess the last caveat is at the very bottom, you'll see that grouping. That's there just in case the ambulance, the rescission of the ambulance, what's called RRAP authorization. If it does not pass and it stays in production, then what we have to do, obviously, we still have to fund the ambulance, and we would do that through these warrant articles, which are actually in there. The one question that we don't have a number for is the wage account, which I understand is approaching, if not actually in a deficit. So there will have to be some amount of money probably to do that, even if we don't. Even if we do end up denying or rescinding that particular RRAP, so the ambulance becomes part of the budget. So there will be some amount of money. At this point, Donna is not 100% sure, and neither is Lori, but we'll have that for town meeting, obviously. So that is where we are.
I have one thing I want to circle back and talk to the chairman of the water department. Don, again, this is no reflection on you whatsoever regarding this. I want to make it really clear, but it's my understanding that you have roughly 500 water users in town. Is that a pretty solid number?
It is.
And to get to the 16,000, that would be $16 additional to the water rate now, semi-annually, right? So a total of $32 if the 16,000 is an accurate number. Dennis wasn't hard and fast at that. Lori thought it would be less, but, and again, it's no reflection of the way you've run the water department. It's something you inherited through the previous town administrator. So I want to make that very clear that it's nothing that the water department has done to create this shortfall. And I understand, but it's something that, from my opinion, it needs to be fixed. So, and I want to thank you for all the effort that you have put in on the committees and boards that you continue to serve on. So is there any other questions regarding the budget hearing?
Just wanted to make one sort of historical perspective or comment on behalf, I'm personally speaking as a individual as the chairman of the advisory committee, but this is the first year in the 7 years that I've been doing it, that I think the selectmen and the advisory committee are going in without any differences in the line items or warrant articles or whatever. And again, that's from my standpoint, that's positive. But again, I don't know what the town will think. But again, we put from an advisory committee standpoint, we put an extreme amount of work into this, knowing that this year we had a very, we hit the ground running with the financial team we have in place, as well as probing all the various departments. And again, I think a lot of stuff happened in the last month. Maybe there was a second or third peeling of the onion back on all the department heads' budgets and everything else. But I feel very confident that we have pushed as best we can this year under very difficult circumstances. And the other point that I wanted to make is that the advisory committee traditionally has looked at just the levy limit as long as we're under the levy limit, if we're more or less in sync with revenues and expenses, because revenues again are projections and who knows if they're true. But the 5-year revenue projection is such that it's going, sort of flat or down. Plus, with the expense situation, we felt it was incumbent upon us to make every effort to hold the line, and perhaps this is the first time that I can see from 7 years that we've basically made significant chops in the major department budgets, which again is very uncomfortable, but I think is warranted given the state of economy or projected state of the economy. And again, we advisory committee always takes a hit when we get up there, but I'm happy to do that this year because I think we put our all into it. So anyway, that's on behalf of everyone. Just wanted to make that a public record. Sorry.
Mary Lou Knight, library trustee. I feel a little blindsided when the warrant article for the library, $40,000, was removed Tuesday night. I saw a one-line email from Ron to Brenda saying it had been removed. No discussion. There has been discussion earlier with the advisory as far as what we were doing, how we were doing it. There is a plan in place. I don't know if there's been discussion since Tuesday, but this is another communication issue.
Well, I agree. I think you should have been afforded more of an explanation, but I'll try to expand on that right now, as well as I'll let the town administrator. But there's not one single member of the library or the trustees that have sought out ADA grants. There's no one that's done that. So how many grants have you applied for?
We have not applied. We have talked with Lindsay any number of times.
So that's so this is where I'm going with the explanation. You're hitting us pretty hard without asking for a reason why. And we didn't supply a reason yet, but I'm glad this topic is up right now. There's not anyone at that library that's qualified to do the grant writing that we're going to seek for. We've had a lot of conversation, Ron and I, in the last few days about seeking grants for the library. The librarian does a great job as a librarian, but she's not a construction supervisor, management in any way, shape, or form. I'm not sure why our grant writer has not done more work with the librarian, but I vow to make sure it happens further. However, Ron has had significant conversation with Lindsay as well as Brenda, so I'm going to open it up to Ron as to where we're going with the library and how we're going to get you the $40,000 you need.
Yeah, so Lindsay actually is in the process of applying for an ADA grant specifically for the library. This is very similar to the grant that I believe last year we did was not accepted. Exactly. This is for the study. And the rationale behind that is, I think, as Rich was alluding to, is it makes a lot of sense to have the study performed first by professionals who could indicate, okay, here's your punch list, if you will, to make the library ADA accessible, versus having, well, we'll call unprofessionals and amateurs, if you will.
Local contractors?
Yeah. Well, ultimately, yeah,
We're working with local contractors, and we're very well versed in the ADA requirements.
But we would like a professional to do the study, that's what we're seeking, and to move forward that way, and not to raise and appropriate, whether it comes out of the taxpayer or the free cash. It's not the right way to continue. Brenda has had a big budget over there for the last several years. She got $45,000 last year. When we spoke the other day, $41,000 was available. When she spoke to Ron today, she said contracts have been signed, but she's had a whole year to get that done. Why hasn't that happened? I'm sorry?
You can't do it in the middle of the winter.
What about last summer? She had all last summer. The annual town meeting was in June. So my point is, a lot of times people come and ask for this money and they're not ready to do the work to spend it. And you know what? I think a lot more work needs to be done over there, and some real decision-making has to be happened. $30,000 to paint that building may be a mistake. Rather than vinyl side it, put a nice white siding on it for maybe $20,000 and give some money back to the taxpayers, rather than paint the building that's going to need to be done every 5 years. The paint we use today is not what it was 30 years ago. You will need to literally paint that building every 5 years at the tune of $30,000. We might as well just tear that place down and build a new one that would be sustainable. If we cannot do it with grants, then I don't see, with the debt we have at 1.1 million and change, I don't see it continuing. You and your husband were in last week talking about the possibility of a senior center or a community center. How do we continue on the rate we're at, getting the loans and not being fiscally responsible? I don't see it happening, and I can't support it. So knowing that we can apply for grants to get a study to move us forward on what to do first at the library, and second and third and fourth from a professional in that field, seems to be way more appropriate than the librarian. She does a great job. I've never heard anything but good things come from the librarian and how she runs that program. So it's nothing to do with the librarian personally. It's to do with finance and the shape of our community.
I'm a little skeptical. I have personally been on 3 study committees for the senior center. We're still nowhere.
How would you propose we pay for it based on having the 1 million in debt? We're paying 60 grand a year just in interest. So how are you going to propose? I saw in Don's flyer that there's roughly 1,100 seniors in this community, most of them which live in mobile home parks that simply don't generate any tax. So how would you propose that we pay for this stuff? Everyone wants everything, but you know what? How does it come down to the taxpayer that we say, hey, you're going to pay another 3% this year, 2.5%? Because when my house was $1,200 a year when I built it in this town, 2.5% wasn't so bad. But now it's 6, 8, and 1,000 and 10,000 for a single-family home in town. 2.5% is a lot, and it's a lot of burden on the taxpayer. And that's what I'm advocating for. So thank you. Any other questions? So I guess we're going to wrap it up, and we're going to go back to our regularly scheduled selectmen's meeting. I'm going to take a quick break to grab a water drink.
No, we but in depth, because bridges is really in depth, and something we study, we recommend, but I don't know, maybe it's a grant, I mean, it's fun. All I'm saying, I've been complaining that I think the budget wants to budget. That's one thing that goes on. See, with the warrants, always a mess, because they move around, things change, and it's just. You don't have control of it. It's a personal
Well, usually he asks
Well,
if
we
he
split
has anything in
two
category.
Yeah, because either way, it's going to be there.
Which you advise me, much like water department, has one Drury Lane broadcasting stuff.
Thanks.
Yeah. That was fun. He knows the bylaws really well. And he knows against raising taxes and increases in anything. And so he's a valuable member of that group. I mean, he actually advised us, it was 2 years ago, the way the bylaws read, the advisory committee's terms expired at the point of the town meeting, whether it was the end of the fiscal year. So we had transfers and everything else that we could not vote on because we had not been reappointed. And we just, at the meeting, we did everything, and we said, look, this committee is not official, we're not officially, we've never been appointed. So we have to go back to the, I forget who it was, but, go through all that. So that's what I remember Bob for. He keeps us straight if there's a problem with the bylaw. And, other than that, I don't know what to say. So, I'd like to get one on the committee. I'm not going to raise an issue because, these,
It's like any committee, you can't get people to volunteer.
well, I've told you this story. I was out of the town numbers. It was 2.5 years because we went from 9 people to 7 to 5, and then at one point we had 4 and 2 were on vacation, and we were in the middle of the birthday cycle. So I had to call them from where they were work for. So people just like to home. It's just, but I think, again, I'm not saying one or the other. Now the way things department heads are going to have to be very precise in what they're submitting as far as what they're coming forward. It's not going to be able to take whatever not going to the program. Because we do have the financial team in place, the numbers have become more clear. Whereas before we didn't have an accountant, treasurer, to show up at meetings, and we had no idea what's supposed to. Now we're at a good point. Just needs that people.
Okay, ready to go again? Sorry for the pause. So, do you want to go through the warrant again, Ron, or are we good to sign the warrant?
Yeah, basically what we see in the warrant, the quote-unquote clean copy of the warrant, is some relatively minor wording changes for a handful of warrant articles that we had identified. The big ones are Article 22, the cemetery one. Town council weighed in, said, there's no reason to necessarily throw it overboard off the warrant article, or excuse, off the warrant, but it's really not going to accomplish anything. Mm-hmm. So, as she said, that's going to end up being a select board decision. Okay. The other one was, and we had discussed it with the citizens that filed the citizens petition, is all the way in the back with Article 32, and that's the accepting of Country Woods Circle. Mm-hmm. Once again, it's a citizens petition, so we have to keep it on there by law. But even if it passes, it's going to be invalidated because the process, the Mass General Law process that's needed to adopt or accept a townway, there's many steps that were skipped. So even if it's accepted, it's going to get rejected by the Attorney General's office. So it'll be invalidated and we have to start the process over again.
There's a chance we pass over the article if you and I continue to work with the people that presented it. So they were in this evening, we spoke to them briefly, we gave them some information, so we'll continue to do that. And perhaps next year, if they have all their ducks in a row, we could actually put it on again if they choose.
Absolutely.
But there's a chance we may pass over it. But my intention is to leave it there as well. So
Yeah, in fact, by law, we have to leave it.
Yep.
I would suggest that we just move to take no action on it.
Okay.
But other than that, it's pretty much as was discussed at our last meeting.
Personally, I'm okay with the new article the cemetery commissioners put in, and we'll just let it shake out at the town meeting. But what's your contention, Sarah? Do you have anything that you would like to, any way you care to go on that?
I'm fine with it for now, until we meet Thursday with our two committees.
Yes. There's a chance we'll pass over it at the town meeting, hopefully, if we can strike a deal.
Sure. Yeah, same thing, we could move to take no action.
Okay, fair enough.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So I had sent Ron an email in reference to possibly adding another warrant article. No, is that up for consideration or not?
No, we were given a very hard no by the town clerk and also town council that once the warrant article had, once the warrant had been closed, and it had been closed for a significant amount of time, that reopening was not an option, especially at this late a date.
Okay.
So Don, I'll expand a little more on that. Beth asked for a couple articles as well, and I had one, and none of them could be put on either. So I want you to know that there were several others. So, seeing no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion to sign the warrant.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. So did I slide it over to you? Yeah, there you go. Second on the list is sign annual town meeting warrant. So we did the review, so you signed, so we're good with that?
Yeah, I would say just since the board has been reconstituted after the election, I think it would probably be best if the board would actually vote to accept the budget as presented.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget as presented.
I'll second the discussion, but we're going to make some minor changes based on the hours for the clerk, and right, so it's not.
Yeah, I would say maybe then contingent upon the agree to changes, or we could push it off until after we discuss.
Yeah, I mean that's the last article. Yeah, okay, all right.
That's not a significant number, though, right?
No, it's
2,000 something like that.
Correct. Yeah.
Were there two different things you were talking about? I can't remember.
yeah. There's at least two. We talked about two so far. So, so Karen had a question. We did a motion and a vote on number 4, I believe, but let's redo.
I'll tell you what it said. It said the motion was to cut the all board clerks' hours from 10 to 5 and focus solely on doing minutes. But I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything about the Board of Health.
So we had this. So you're good with that vote? You get the vote
I'm
on
good
that?
with that vote.
Okay. So then we'll redo the Board of Health
Yeah.
clerks. So I'll entertain a motion to cut the Board of Health clerk from 12 hours a week to 8 hours a week based on a verbal discussion with the Board of Health chair.
So moved.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Number 6, appoint liaison to the grant writer. I'll make a motion that we appoint Sarah to be the liaison for the grant writer.
Second. Discussion.
Sure. So one reason I thought was really important is Ron's meeting with the grant writer once a week. The problem that I see is we need more direct conversation with the grant writer. Number one, so that we know what's going on more than once a week. The one thing that Ron and I spoke about are some of the grants that are being applied for are split grants for funds. That was one of the articles that Beth wanted to put on, was to create an article so that we could appoint or put some money towards, if we do get a grant that we need to split with the state, that we would have it available, we could fund it, and we could take advantage of it. As a result of not having the time to open a warrant, we could not get that on. So it's my opinion that we should not even apply for any more grants that are a split grant. We don't have the funds to match it, so we're just wasting Lindsay's time at that point. So,
In fact, if you think about it, if we apply for a matching grant and we don't have a funding source, I'm not even sure that's legal, because if you think about it, not only is it wasting Lindsay's time, it's wasting the time of the grantor to go through the application and weigh the pros and cons of it. So.
yeah. So in a way to open up more communication with the grant writer and the select board, as well as any other committees in town, particularly the library committee is sitting here this evening, we need a more open line of communication. So from this point on, if you want to contact Ron or Sarah regarding the grants, we are more than willing to move forward with that. I understand that today there was a grant for the library that closed that Lindsay couldn't finish, and I was told that the librarian finished. Do you know if that's accurate?
I know that Lindsay had sent a request for the librarian to basically fill out the grant, which is the grant writer's job.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And the problem with it is, if she's just sending it the day that it's due,
Right.
we need more communication. That should not be happening, and I can't agree with that more. So, again, hopefully with a liaison to the grant writer from the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator, we can try to take advantage of more of these opportunities. And the librarian should not be doing that grant when we have a grant writer. Worst case scenario, they could be doing it collectively, right? Because perhaps Lindsay won't know all the answers that the librarian would, or vice versa. And we need, if we're going to move forward with the library, that's how we need to do it, from my opinion. So, thank you. Anything else on that, Ron? Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff.
Sorry, just trying to think a little bit strategically now. So if you're saying don't look for the matching funding grants, at least this year, then who is providing the strategic guidance to the grant writer? I mean, what are her, again, this is sort of an open-ended question, but what is she looking for? Is it, like road improvement grants or library grants or anything and everything?
Anything that's not a matching grant, and Ron has been meeting with Lindsay once a week, but if we can get a little more communication through liaison through the rest of the community, I think it's, or the rest of the boards and committees, I think it's going to be a win-win moving forward.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying as far as from a strategy standpoint, because I mean, I know she's split time between the two things. If she's saying, all right, well, let's just look at, road grants or whatever grants, just so that she's not just whatever all over the place. That's sort of what my concern would be, without some strategic direction from the selectmen or the town administrator as far as where we want to focus. Do we want, I mean, again, I know you're not in favor of it, Rich, but remember we had that, someone suggested, sewer connection with, where was it, North Brookfield. So, okay, if the select were behind that, then, okay, go look for a grant for that thing, something like that. But
if there's a grant for that, absolutely. Yeah, right. I would think the board would, through the liaison and through the town administrator, I would think that would be a clear example of how to move forward. But it just can't be a match grant when we don't have the funds set aside.
No, I understand that, but I'm just talking because I've never seen, I guess it's like a wish list. I've never seen the select board ever have a strategic direction in the time of years that I've been in the town.
Yeah.
It's always like, or just more reactive rather than proactive, so
Our
that's,
goal is to move forward, to try to get
Right.
to the point which would be ideal, but you're right, it's not been, and
I'm just trying
it's
to
all
put that thought in everyone's mind that, I mean, this strategy, because I know there's a lot of towns out there that they have a very specific goals as far as what they're trying to do, and then they probably just push everyone that way, so that's.
Well, I'd like to see what town that is, because I'm telling you, this, just volunteering for the select board, what I've done, it's a huge time sink. So I don't know how other people do it. It's immense, but you're fortunate enough to be on a committee that you meet every week for maybe 3 months, and then you get a kind of break for 9 months. But, you know, it's a huge time commitment, and I think we're one of the few towns around that actually have a grant writer. I don't know of any other one in local towns. So as far as being a step forward, I think we are, but I think we're striving to be better as we go. So.
And Jeff, one of the things Lindsay's been charged with is to meet with all the different department heads and committees to identify what their priorities are. So that becomes, I guess she's cognizant of that as she's looking for these grants. And basically what, well, assuming that it passes, she now just has an extra filter where if she starts to do her research and she says, oh, it's got a 20% match, she has to realize we're not eligible and move on.
All right. So all in favor of appointing Sarah to the grant writer? Aye. Not for the grant writer, but for the liaison for the grant writer. Aye. Okay. Number 7, to discuss grant strategy moving forward. I'm gonna let you take the lead on that, Ron. I know we just kind of covered some of it, but it's a specific line item, so.
Well, one of the concerns, and in fact, kind of almost piggyback on what we were just talking about with Jeff, is obviously a lot of the grants are matching grants. So that means instead of, and I'll just use figures, instead of identifying and researching, say, 30 grants, where you would have to dig in to say, okay, what are the particulars that we need to be able to become eligible or even to apply? Well, with that filter saying no match, well, that's going to cut her workload down, I would say, significantly. Because now, like I said, one of the first questions is a match required? If the answer is yes, then she moves on to something else. So I think that's something that we have to consider.
And there's still a lot of grants out there, so Spencer doesn't apply for any match grants. We don't have a grant writer, our TA is our grant writer. He's applying for 1 to 3 grants a week, so there's plenty of grants out there that aren't matched.
Okay.
I want to make that clear.
Oh, fair enough.
Well, but we have it. Whatever Spencer's doing, just give it to Ron.
We'll try to keep up with Spencer.
They're broke, so they can't afford it, okay?
I see.
As far as determining a plan for grants and a strategy in that regard, we do have a new master plan for the town of Brookfield. We do not yet have a master plan committee. So I think it would be valuable if we do have some long-term goals for the town, we should reference that and try to recruit residents to get involved in that volunteer opportunity, because I think that could be a great reference for us to determine what direction we want to take our town. And I think our grants should reflect that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for volunteering for that, Steve.
Yeah, you should have asked it. Should we put a limit on how many positions one person can hold?
Well, Jeff was saying, hey, you want to join the advisory committee? I'm like, I don't think I can do that one. I already have 3.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Hey, I tried to convince you before. I tried to convince you for cable advisory too. So.
Well, thank you. All right, so item number 8. Well, before I get to item 8, Ron was telling me you had also a recommendation from the highway department as well, so I will make sure we get that on next week's agenda. Okay. Yes.
Oh, and also really quick, I want to talk about discuss grant strategy. we'll have the $25,000 for the town hall by August. I talked to Donnie.
Wow.
Okay. Making that clear.
So Don, that's 25,000 for the town hall, hopefully windows, or and if it's not enough, we'll.
That's an earmark. Right?
Yes, it is an earmark. That would be for August. I talked to Donnie, and Donnie said we'll have the funds by August. And it's just for town hall. It doesn't say windows. It doesn't. Just town hall.
So that was my email, other email, which was what was submitted in order to secure those earmarks. And are we limited to that, or is it kind of open-ended?
No, as Sarah had indicated, it sounds like the earmark, and granted, when I was notified that the earmark had been placed, it was very open-ended, town hall improvements. So we do have a tremendous amount of latitude. Now, that being said, when it was quote-unquote submitted, and quite literally, it was an email to Donna, that I just listed town hall improvements, and then just as 3 sub-bullets, storm windows, floor refinishing, and something else that, quite frankly, I can't remember.
So I do want to give Sarah the credit. Has she not been running into Donnie Berthium on a regular basis in Spencer, I don't think this would have come about. Initially, it was Sarah's idea, and simply stating that Donnie told her Brookfield had not submitted anything. Once Sarah made that clear to me, I talked to Ron, and Ron actually made a submission to get the earmark. So thank you, Sarah, for doing
Yeah, I
that.
know you tried to take the credit.
I did take the credit originally, but I'm giving it back.
It was my idea.
This is not the first time I've heard about this either.
You go, Sarah.
Hey, it's my 25 grand that I got, you know.
You said it was too late, it didn't matter, I got the credit, but now you're willing to take it back, so, okay. So, item number 8 on the agenda, changing select board meetings back to Tuesdays versus Thursdays. Is that something that's better for you, Sarah?
Yeah, I am all for it.
It would be easier for me as well, and I think it'll be more continuity from the town administrator to send his emails out on Wednesday morning versus, is there a problem?
Just for filming the meetings.
Oh, is that a problem?
Well, yeah, now I want to hear from Jake.
Okay, well, let's get to the discussion anyway. So I thought Ron could get his emails out Wednesday morning instead of waiting till Monday morning from a Thursday night meeting. I thought that would be a better, but so.
And Karen told me they used to be Tuesdays.
For many years, yes, until Brad came on board, because it wasn't convenient for him.
Okay.
So we'll just switch.
So yeah, it was switched back to Thursdays.
Right, so I'm not so sure that we need a motion for that, but we'll just get right into discussion. So go ahead, Steve.
Have you spoken with Beth about this? Or do you think it would be better to table that for her?
No, we did speak to Beth about it, and some of the Tuesdays works good for her, sometimes Thursdays better. So she asked about the possibility of a fluctuating schedule. I don't know that that's going to be very effective. I think that's going to be very cumbersome, and I don't think it'll be too effective, but we probably won't make a decision on this without Beth, but I know Tuesdays would be far better for me. I think it's better for the town administrator, and clearly Sarah for her childcare, I guess, so.
Well, I mean, I can't argue with child care.
Unless you want Brooks taking a spot in front of the...
Our newest select woman.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. If we need to make it Tuesday, I can fit things around.
So we'll probably bring this up again at next Thursday's meeting, and this would not take effect until after the annual town meeting.
Okay.
More than likely.
All right, that would help.
So
Give me
it'll
some
give
time.
everyone some time, but we wanted to have the discussion and get it out.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Just a question as a public citizen, is there a set schedule for the select board to meet? Because I know there was a certain period of time where it was like every month and then every 2 months or every 6 weeks. Is it like a every other week, or what is the
I think the
routine?
consensus has been every other week unless we need an additional meeting, and for that
But normally it's going to be at least every 2 weeks. There won't be a cap like
think
there
for the
has
summer-
been in the past.
I think for the summer months, it'll be more than likely every other week. If we get into the fall and winter where we need to meet more often, I think that would be I know when I was select board in the past, we met every week, with the exception in the summer, we met every other week. So
Right, but my concern was that it won't be less than that.
it won't go more than 2 weeks.
Okay.
Unless there's some extenuating circumstances, but other than that, it'll be every other week.
Okay, and just my other question for, again, as a public citizen, I know that as things have rotated the last couple of years, there's certain chair people who would put things on the agenda and then wouldn't put things on the agenda. I have a member of my committee who was basically carried on I don't know how long it is, 2 or 3 year pilgrimage or whatever the word is to get something on the agenda to talk about a certain subject, but was not allowed by one of the chair people, and I think that's why he was a little bit angry about everything. So what is the procedure for getting something on the agenda as a public citizen? Because this is for my own benefit. I mean, I'm always confused because I don't know, and when are you allowed to speak and all that stuff?
So it's very clear that our public comment is anyone gets up to 2 minutes if it's an agenda item.
Okay.
If they would like to be on the agenda, it's been traditionally, you see a member of the select board, and I've asked to put things on when I was not the chair, and Brad has allowed it. So any member of the board, while I'm the chair, can put whatever they want on the meeting. The only time that I may restrict it is if we have a huge agenda, and I would only ask they postpone it to the next meeting. But other than that...
What about a public citizen? They would approach one of the select board members?
Or Karen.
Yeah, I was going to say Karen or myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it would be responded within a day as far as whether you're on the agenda or not, something like that?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I don't know that there's been that much flexibility from a citizen seeing Karen, but what Karen would then do would be notify the chair, right? Is that correct?
Yes, it should be in writing. They usually ask them to email me and put it in writing.
Okay.
Specifically what they want to be put on the agenda, and then I send it out to the chair and get your permission.
Okay. And I will probably treat that as traditionally done. The only, again, if we have a real busy week that particular week, I would ask for a postponement. But I made it very clear at our last meeting that when Beth was there that any member of the Board of Selectmen that wants something on the agenda, they are going to have the ability to do it. Even though I, as chair, have the ability to restrict, I will not do that.
Right, no, but I was more, as a public citizen, if I have something I want to put on, I just need to know what the proper procedure is. Because I saw my neighbor, friend, whatever, be very frustrated, and I didn't get into why he was not able to get what he wanted on the agenda, so that's...
How long ago was that?
That was with the individual that you defeated. So, so I don't know exactly what happened there. But.
So that's surprising to me, but he's never asked me to put anything on. But I will say, while he was chair, I couldn't even speak at a town meeting or at a selectman meeting.
Yeah, I don't want to bring up any bad stuff, but I was confused because that's why when I do come to select board meetings, is it okay for me to ask a question about something or whatever? Then just say, no, you're out of order, don't talk, that's fine, or whoever.
As long as it's an agenda item.
As long as I know what the rules are, I'm fine, yeah.
As long as it's an agenda item, people will have the right to speak. Unless the board votes otherwise, but right now, we're carrying on with what we have until someone makes a recommendation of a
I
change.
just figured if it was a small meeting, we had you here, I'd ask the question, because I've never been able to figure it out. It's like a smoke and mirrors thing.
Okay. So I think we should carry the discussion for the Tuesday meeting at our next Thursday meeting and make a decision that that'll give Jake some time to check on it. And to Steve's point asking about Beth, I want to make it very clear that Beth could not make last week's meeting. I had Karen, I'm sorry? Tuesday's meeting. Then I made sure I asked Karen to email Beth if she had any concerns that she would like brought up at the meeting. Did you get a response?
No.
And then I also asked Ron to find out if she had anything. And so, Steve, just to let you know, going forward, I will take the appropriate steps.
And, sorry, Steve, hold on. The Tuesdays and Thursdays, I mean, I wish Beth was here. Could we put out like a calendar maybe? Like, so Spencer does their calendar a year in advance. And we like post it online and send it to all the department heads so that maybe when she's here we can discuss it. Maybe if we did do it, that the citizens like had advance time, you know, just not the 48 hours, but they had the full year calendar marking what Tuesdays and
That's
Thursdays.
what we used to do.
We used to do that.
What we used to do before is we always, you would vote, I guess it's not even necessary, but you would vote when you would do your meetings in 3-month blocks.
Yeah.
And then I would go on and I would list them all and it would say agenda will be posted closer to the meeting. But then when Kelly came on board, she always preferred that we just did it 48 hours. But I always felt that the old way is good because then people can see that the meetings, they know when the meeting is, and they won't post, a meeting the same night. It's just so much better. I'd like to go back to that way, yes.
So those are easy ways for us to move forward, and I think that would be a great thing.
Yeah, just an idea, yeah.
The 3-month block.
Yeah, even 3 months or something like that,
Yeah.
and then just post them, and that way we can decide what Tuesdays, what Thursdays, and hopefully she can give us a little bit of advance notice on what days and weeks work for her.
Well, I was going to say, I think it would probably especially help for Beth as well. If she knows there's certain Tuesdays that she knows she's not going to be able to make, then that gives the board a chance.
Yeah, I feel like that's the only way it's going to work, because I wouldn't want somebody to randomly show up on a Tuesday thinking, and the meeting's Thursday or opposite. So that's the only, that's my only concern.
And I agree. I think that would happen if we did the alternating. Heck, I'd probably be staying late every Tuesday and Thursday just to make sure.
Just so you didn't miss a meeting.
Okay. Anything
Sorry,
else,
Steve.
Steve?
No, I just wanted to say you're a 3-member board, and any scheduling decisions, I think, for optics and for a collaborative decision, I think it'd be best to hold off until you have a full board here.
So
But
just-
if you are on the same page.
Yeah.
Just for full transparency, that this agenda was done 48 hours ago, right? And unfortunately, Beth had a situation where she couldn't make it tonight, but she was planning to be here, and that's just because it was on the agenda. I didn't want to not talk about it, but she more than likely, had this circumstance didn't happen, she would have been here. So I don't want the public thinking that we're trying to do this when she's not here.
Yeah, I
That was
wasn't
not the
insinuating.
intent. Okay, no, but I just want to make it clear.
I would just encourage you holding off on a decision until you have a full board, which it seems like you were in line with, so that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So, anything else?
The budget, whether or not we want to vote for that now or hold off. Because we do have to go to print probably, Karen, next Tuesday?
Tuesday, yes. Monday's a holiday. We're going to print on Tuesday.
Obviously, if there are any changes versus the printed booklet, they could easily be made on town meeting floor.
When is it going to print?
Tuesday.
Tuesday. And because Monday's a holiday, we could not meet before that, right? Okay. Well, I mean, we could always take the 48 hours not anticipated by the chair. We could have an emergency meeting to do that if we had to.
I think that would be a stretch.
That'd be a stretch. Okay.
Because obviously it's something that's already being at least thought about as being a discussion action item. So I think the Attorney General's office would probably take a jaundiced view.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, I don't want to upset anyone for sure. So maybe we could just work the numbers real quick on those two positions, and then why don't we do that?
Yeah, what I'll do is, since they've both been voted, it's easy enough for me to go back into my office, update the spreadsheet. I can get that to Karen, so Tuesday morning we can get it off to print.
Okay. All right, so we don't need to know the number right now. We're going to start based on this, but you'll change the number.
Right, yeah, and you could even make your motion based upon the
two changes.
Yeah, authorizing the board to update the numbers reflecting the vote of the board.
Okay.
From a logistics standpoint, I mean, the advisory committee will not have a chance to meet prior either, so, I mean, we'll just go with it the way it is, I guess. There'll be a difference, but, I mean, it's explainable on the floor.
I think typically with your board, as long as the numbers go down, you're not too concerned. If they go up, that's when you get real.
No, true,
So,
but then
okay.
my previous statement would be incorrect because we're a little bit out, but it's not a big deal.
Okay.
At least it's really due to more logistics and timing versus a difference of opinion.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion for Ron to rework the two numbers regarding the Board of Health clerk and the all boards clerk. And in doing so, we agree on the budget and approve the budget.
So moved.
I'll second that. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Two of us hands on the left.
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye.
Ron, if you want to do it Tuesday morning, do it Tuesday morning, as long as I get it to him on Tuesday. So don't, I mean, I don't want you to think you have to run to your office right now. As long as I get it Tuesday by noon, we're all set.
Well, I can get it to you probably even tomorrow morning. I can run the numbers, and that's the beauty of SharePoint.
Okay, all
I can
right.
work from a zillion way too.
All right.
So our next scheduled hearing will be
It's going to be Thursday, 7 p.m. I didn't post it. I was going to post it Tuesday. You want me to just post it? No, I'll post it Tuesday in case anything has to be added.
post it Tuesday, but the number one is